Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we are back to discuss episodes 4 through 6, the second arc of the final season of Disney Plus's Andor. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Mark. I am joined, as always, by my Star Wars aficionado, Mark Jacobino. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, Darian. Hey, everyone.
Excited to jump back into this world. We got episodes 4 through 6 this week, and then we have the second half of the season left. Yeah. And then that's it. We're not in this world anymore, at least for a bit. I still feel like they're going to wind up doing something because they're going to have to, because the numbers are going to be so high. They're going to figure out a way to do something. I don't know what they're going to do. But right before we started recording, you're like, this is dense. There's a lot to talk about. And there is a lot to talk about. We jumped to, I believe it's 3 BBY.
Yeah, I think so.
Correct? So 3 BBY. And let's just go episode by episode.
Okay.
So let's start with episode 4. We are seeing Bix still having these PTSD episodes. She's having all this fear from Dr. Gorst and what he put her through. And it's another kind of vision that she has with him. And it is a good way to kind of think about her arc in general and where we end up by the beginning of episode 4 to the end of this arc. But seeing her go through this and the impact that it has on her relationship with Cassian, and not only that, but the mission that they're on. I'm curious your thoughts on that relationship and opening us up to that again with her and kind of framing it so much in the human element of Bix and what she's dealing with and the repercussion it has not only on their intimate relationship, romantic relationship, but the mission at large.
I love your very involved question.
Thank you, sir.
It's good because obviously we end the last arc with a very traumatic scene with her, so we really have to focus in on what she's going through. Like you said, the PTSD of what the Empire's put her through, not just with the torture, but also just in general on Ferrix. They shot her first boyfriend right in front of her. And now we have this relationship with Cassian and Bix where she's somewhat in and somewhat out of the rebellion. You know, it was implied in their first conversation that she was involved in their last mission and that Cassian had to kill someone. She kept calling him a kid, but Cassian's like, no, he was a soldier. He was old enough to be involved in this war, and I needed to keep you safe, and I needed to kill him. And that's starting to weigh on her too. So she's kind of in this middle ground where she's very much hating the Empire and wanting to do something about it, but also like, I don't know if I'm ready to be in your world, Cassian. And I think that's an interesting conflict to put her in. And yeah, like you said, I like how they've been very creative with her PTSD, not just like waking up with cold sweats, but seeing Dr. Gorst in the mirror in the last episode. And then also in this episode, he's in their living room. So I think this is the first time we really get to see Cassian and Bix together. You know, in season 1, it's very tenuous. It's very much a historical relationship, not like a current relationship. So we finally get to see their, you know, intimacy, which is nice. It's needed at this point. How did you feel?
I really like the way that they're handling her character and the way that she's going through trauma. And you're seeing, even through the first 6 episodes, you're seeing the different sides of Adria's performance too, showing how she had to be even keeled before the assault in the first arc, and now like her trauma is even more deep rooted because she's gone through another traumatic experience, and so much of it is baked in that idea too of her being alone, like not being with Cassian. But then there's the other side of it where Cassian feels responsible for not being there for her, and the past 2 times he wasn't there is when she's been captured or she's been tortured or she's been. So the dynamic between the two of them, especially in this arc, is something that, like, the intimacy between those two characters, and we can get more into later, like what happens in the later episodes when we get to those episodes, but it's just, I haven't seen it in Star Wars. Like it's very personal. It feels authentic. It's not like a jokey romance. It's very intimate. It's dealing with the emotional impact of what they've gone through and how they have a codependency on one another, but at the same time, they're on this larger mission of trying to stop the Empire, and there are people amongst that, and it has ramifications with what's happening with Luthen also.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The only thing I could say about Bix's arc, I don't want to get too far ahead, but I didn't love how they wrapped it up, at least the pace at which they did it, but I think we'll get into that in episode 6. But
Yeah. From one romantic entanglement though to another with Syril and Deidre.
Hot and heavy.
Hot and heavy. Syril is again. So we end up. This is a year after what we wrapped up on episode 3. So we are now at a place where Syril is working on Gorman, and there is this kind of crew of outsiders. Somebody online compared them to like the freedom fighters. And they even like have a dialect that seems like very like French in tone.
Yeah, I took it as an homage to the French liberation movement during like Nazi occupied Germany.
Exactly.
That's what I took.
Yeah. And so this crew, they have bugged the building in which Cyril's working in. He's fronting, and they get him to kind of show up to this rally, essentially, where they're discussing all of the plans that the Empire has, and all the real ramifications and what is to come with that are all in the dark again. Obviously, we know it because it was presented in the scene with Krennic in the first act. But the intro to Syril in this arc is a conversation with his lovely mother, and he says that him and Deidre have broken up, which is obviously a lie.
Yeah.
I just love their banter, as always. It's something that I look forward to every single week with the scenes between the two of them. But getting him involved with this other side of how did you feel about them handling the arc that way? And did you think at any point there was a chance he could flip or anything like that? Because it's at the same time, I keep thinking about a scene from the first act with his mother when they're having the dinner with them two and Deidre. And she talks about how his father was an adventurer. And it's like this, he always wants to go out and be like his father in a way, you know, with the way that he wants to be the hero. And you see it later in the arc too, where he's having conversations. Yeah. But I'm curious your thoughts on introducing that layer to it as well, because that's a whole new faction that we get within the first episode of this arc.
Yeah. I was not expecting this much of Syril. I think he's, you know, he intros kind of the arc, like other than the small Bix scene we get, but he's really like the centerpiece of the arc, because all of the plotting and scheming between the ISB and like egging on the rebellion or the fledgling rebellion on Gorman to act so that the Empire can come down with an iron fist is really interesting, because like you said, we as the audience know more than the character. So we know that he's there for one reason and he doesn't have the full picture because Deidre's also playing him in the background. But then the Liberation Front thinks like, oh, we have like an Imperial operative now. Like we did this, but it's so great because it just keeps like elevating, because then Cassian gets there and he's like, do you realize like the ISB feeds information for a living? Like you guys are playing right into their hand.
Yeah.
So regardless, but yeah, I think there's a very interesting moment with Syril when he does go to that rally and he's talking to the leader of the rally, and he starts talking about their plight and like what's going on there, and you see he does kind of get emotional, and there's like a little bit of a like tick to him where he says something along the lines of, you know, we had a massacre here and we need your help. And I think at a very deep core level, it might affect Syril in a way that he always has respected law and order. And I think to a degree, when he realizes that the Empire doesn't respect it to his level, that might make him turn in a way that is unexpected. But I also think is well in line with his character, because he was never gung-ho with the Empire in the first season. He was more so trying to get Cassian because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. Syril in the first 3 episodes is like, he's very justified in what he's doing. Like he is trying to chase down someone who killed 2 workers. Like that's what he was doing. And even though he comes off as someone unlikable, he realistically is doing the right thing. So in the end, it would be a nice full circle moment if he realizes the Empire that he wants to serve and make better is also not bringing justice. I think that might make him turn, which is cool.
I can feel a turn coming, especially by the time we get to the end of the 6th episode, at the end of the 2nd arc, because you have it's a great shot, by the way, where he's on the rooftop and he's like kind of on bated breath, but he's also like, I can't believe this is happening. Like he's like living it out. And did we get that in the first season, like towards the end? I know he saves Deidre, but isn't there a moment where he feels like he's too in over his head, or am I misremembering that?
In over his head in what way?
In just like that he's the person that's always chasing the excitement, but then when he gets to the moment, he's like, I don't know if I can handle this. Or
yeah. I mean, I think also the first 3 episodes of the first season where he's involved in like the squad that goes to get Andor, he's way out of his depth. He's kind of like, oh, these guys are like way more intense than I am. He tries to give that motivational speech, and they're all like, okay, good job. So I agree. Like when he gets into the real stuff, he kind of folds a bit. So I think when this starts popping off, which it will, I think there's an opportunity for him to change.
Yeah. So then we get to the scene within the Empire. I always forget who's the general. What's his name?
Oh, Partagas. He's just the best. I love him. He played the Maester in Game of Thrones that invents the wildfire. Yes. I love him, and in this character, in this role, and when I saw another ISB meeting, I was like, let's go, because I loved him in season 1. I was like, come on.
But we get I believe the character's name is Lonnie, who is the double agent.
Yeah.
And he speaks up to Partagas and saying like, we're having issues because like we're out of our depth. Like you're arresting too many people. We can't handle it.
Yeah.
And I love how after that scene, we get the scene with the commanding officer who's like, thanks for backing me up in there, like, and speaking up. And I wrote in my notes, it's cracks in the groundwork that is the Empire at the lowest levels, right? So I'm curious, again, you like the ISB scenes, obviously, but that side where you start to see the cracks in the armor, so to speak, like, I love seeing that. It's like the behind the scenes of like, oh man, like something's going to happen off of this. Like it's the little nugget that eventually incites into this bigger thing. And we get obviously a very tense scene with Lonnie at the end of episode 6, but how do you feel about having the double agent within the Empire too? Because we didn't talk about Andor at all in season 1, and obviously he's a big part of that monologue that Luthen has.
I mean, he makes me very nervous because I think they even frame the shot really well where he does speak up and Partagas walks behind him and he puts his hand on the chair, and you don't see Partagas's head. He puts the hand on the chair. He's like, that's an interesting point. I'll have to remember that or something. And it makes me think that they're gonna catch him because he's losing it kind of. He's like last season he's like, I want to get out. This season he's obviously still involved, but that tenuous scene later on, he's like he can't hold up what he should be able to do because he's a double agent. Like those moments should be like butter for him. Like he should be able to act in those moments fine, but he's cracking too.
He's not reliable enough.
No, so I think Partagas and Deidre are gonna catch him at some point, or even Deidre's underling that used to be on her desk but now has been upgraded to be on the ISB council. So I think he's a very interesting character to watch. Yeah,
I agree. Then we go to your Queen Mon Mothma.
Yeah,
and she's spending a lot of time campaigning. Very politico in this episode. That's really all we get from her.
And that's my issue. And that's my issue because I was a little disappointed in Mon Mothma's involvement in this arc.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a fair assessment, by the way. She's not. I feel like this might be the least we've seen her in a 3-episode arc in a while.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she wasn't in the first 3-episode arc, which is crazy to say, but yeah, in the first season she wasn't. But yeah, I think after just such a big moment for her in the last arc where she loses her daughter to marriage and her long time friend, Tay, I just feel like there should have been a bigger shift in her character in this season, or at least at this point in the season, because again, this is a year later, so she's kind of had to stew with this for a while. But she kind of felt the same old Mon Mothma. It didn't feel like she had changed in any way to be more jaded or something like that. All we get, like you said, is her politicking with other senators to be on her side, and she's realizing more and more that she's alone in the Imperial Senate, that no one wants to speak out anymore. And while that's powerful, it's not something we didn't already know. Like in the last season, we had seen that people were not rallying around her as much anymore. So I don't want to say this is redundant, because I did like the little montage we got, but it didn't feel as impactful as I think we should have gotten with a main character like this.
I would agree with you, but I do my counter with that, just from in comparison to the first arc, we talked last week about how, I mean, Andor had a lot to do in the first arc, but it was an arc that a lot of people, and by the way, we are in the majority, a lot of people didn't like a lot of what he did in that first arc, like that whole storyline with the crew. Like a lot of people weren't into that.
Yeah.
And I think he gets a lot of time to shine in this arc. And when I feel like the most important arc of the most important storyline of the first arc was Mon Mothma. I feel like we saw that whole, again, like you saw a different side to her character that we haven't seen previously. But again, I understand your like criticism of like we're coming off of such a big moment for her, and then it just like kind of whimpers because it's like we have nothing to build off of.
I get, no. I mean, you're right though. Like she did get the spotlight in the first arc, so I get you have so many characters that you have to juggle, and you do have to prioritize some across the season. So I get it, and her scenes served a purpose, and they were good. But you know, as someone who refers to her as my queen, I want more. I want a little more.
Of course.
But it was good.
And then, so by the end of the episode, then we just have the interaction between Luthen and Andor, where he tells Cassian that he wants him to go alone to Gorman. And that leads us into episode 5.
Was Saw Gerrera in the fourth one?
He was not. I don't think he starts in episode 5. Unless maybe he's at the very end of episode 4, but I think it's 5.
It might be 5.
I think it's 5.
We got to talk about Saw Gerrera.
Well, of course. Of course.
That part of these
Forrest
3 episodes
Whitaker
was fantastic.
Is the shit. But so in the beginning of episode 5, we still start off with the liberation, and they find out that Syril was a cop previously, and they're getting more information on him. But then quickly after that is when we do get the return of Saw Gerrera. Okay. So we could jump right into it.
Yeah, I'll mention just with the Syril thing, like again, it just proved like how naive they are, because they're like, oh, he was a cop, but he was fired by the Empire, so he has no love for the Empire. Like, I think that's what they drew from his profile, and they're like, oh, we can get this guy because he must have no love for the Empire. And I just thought that was, again, these episodes are so dense, and like they're like kind of blink if you miss it lines, but I was like, oh, that's like, again, so good at just building out, you know,
the idiocy of the characters,
and
though,
just
too.
Like the different tiers of, and how hard it is to put up a rebellion. Like, these people are like fabric makers, they're weavers. Like, this isn't their bread and butter, and now they're trying to go up against an empire, and they just have no idea what they're doing.
Well, what I love too, going off of that, is that you also start to see the different sectors of rebellion. Like, there's all these different, like all these different factions of rebels that are trying to do their own thing. And Saw has his cult following, which is very different and like balls to the wall, and like, again, it's like cultish, like he's like a cult leader. And then you have Luthen, who operates, it operates more like it's like a spy thing. It's like a spy thriller. It's like he's the leader of this like cool group of spies that is like going about doing everything. And then these people, inexperienced, kind of idiots, like trying to do things because they're doing it all based on what they think they're getting more information, but it's really things that everybody is aware of, especially Cassian, which he directly says to Luthen, which I think is in episode 6. But Willman, right? Willman?
Yeah, Willman,
okay.
yeah.
Willman is he's working on this, I guess it's like an engine. Is that what it is?
It's like a siphoning device to get fuel from those pipelines, which
ride
yeah, something like
ride
that.
in something like that.
Yeah.
But it's our reintroduction to Forrest Whitaker, Saw Gerrera. And he's just terrifying, dude. Like, he's like so menacing in a way that he really does remind, like, it really does feel like a cult leader. Like, it feels like he's just somebody that speaks in these like poetic hymns, essentially.
It feels like Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah,
that's that type of character. And I forget if that's what the original, because we originally saw him in Clone Wars. Like, he was first introduced there, and then
and he was voiced by Forrest Whitaker in Clone Wars, wasn't he?
No, because it was a younger version of him, and then in Rebels he was voiced by Forrest Whitaker, and Rogue One, obviously. But yeah, that's always been like, I think, the inspiration kind of for him. But yeah, he's just like a presence. He's just a force on screen.
Yeah, and it's so intimidating. But he asks Woman to train this guy named Pluty from the crew,
who I think was in the Rebel crew.
I also thought that.
He's not?
But no, I don't know. It looked a lot like the guy from the Rebel crew, right?
I think it is. The guy that had like the long hair and was one of the leaders. I think that was
okay,
him.
So I wrote that in my notes initially, but then I crossed it out because like, I don't know if that was him. I thought it was. But so we do get the callback to a character from that. But I also, eventually, it doesn't even wind up mattering, but I thought it was going to be significant. Yeah. In terms of like, maybe he was going to have an interaction with Cassian, and then it was going to be like, I know who you are, and it was going to be a whole thing. But we don't get to that. But Just seeing Saw again, you have obviously a deeper appreciation and more I guess viewing experience with the character. You've heard him and you've seen him in the animated series. Having him back now, and we can talk about his arc in general over these 2 episodes. How do you feel about his reintroduction and now eventually kind of bringing Willman aboard? It seems like by the end of it.
Yeah, Saw has always been a character that I've appreciated his inclusion. I like that he's in Star Wars, but I've never fully connected with. But I think these 2 episodes make me see him and connect with him more than I've ever have before. Like, you know, you've seen him in Rogue One, but at Rogue One he just lost his marbles at that point, and he was hard to kind of like grasp onto. In Clone Wars, he was a very like side character. He was nothing like the one we see in Rogue One or Rebels. And Rebels, again, he's like a one-off mission. But this was like the most I ever saw him, and his like philosophy and the way he recruits people and just like that leadership that he has and his charm in his own way to bring people in. Like, you understand why his crew is so loyal to him. And I'm just going to skip ahead because that scene with the ride-on and him like giving that speech to Willman and he takes off the mask, I was ready to run through a wall. I was like, this is awesome.
It's
like
crazy.
So good. Because again, you know, he's having his little like, he's talking to himself. He's like, yeah, I was in a slave camp once and then we didn't have any clothes. So we had to work without any clothes. And you're just like, what is it? He's just like going on and on and on. And then like it all focuses up and he goes up to the ride and the guy's like, how are you breathing that? How are you? He's like, this is what it feels like. This is revolution. Like, well, take it in.
He says in the, because you talk about the writing in the show, he says, my sister Rido, she loves me.
Yeah.
And referring to the drug. And it's just like, this dude is so
the fuel.
But it acts as like, again, it's like a drug to him. You know what I mean? Like it's something that gets his heart pumping in a different kind of way, to the fact that he's dependent on it in a way. That's how I interpreted it. It's a way where he's just like, this is what's going to propel our mission forward. Like, this is what keeps me going. You know what I mean? Like, did you feel that with this?
I took it more as like the fuel, and that like feeling that it gives you represents what he believes rebellion is. Like, it's that constant just like energy that you're just ready to explode at any point. And that explosion is like that thirst for freedom and that pain, like what, you know, Willman starts feeling when he breathes it in and he's like suffocating. Like, that constant pain and that constant energy is just like, is what propels Saw. And I just thought that was such a cool way to look at, like, yeah, like you could look at it, you know, physically is like the fuel that fuels their mission, but I saw it more like symbolically.
Yeah, well, it's like the suffering. It's like having to get through the suffering to get to the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The writing in his scenes I just thought was so great, and when he does eventually turn on Pluty, that was great too, because it was something where I was like, where is he gonna, like, this dude's a lunatic, like, what is he about to do? So I love the way that they showcased all his scenes. As somebody who my only experience with him was in Rogue One, and I was just like, that's a cool character design, but who the fuck is this guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're right here. Take it all in.
He's just great too. Like, I love Forrest in I think he's a very underrated actor in general, but him in Star Wars, it just like fits. I don't know.
Yeah, just like a character actor, like that is not like the super A-list guy, but just is gonna just play his role and just
as an Oscar winner. I mean, you love it. Do you think we get? I hope we do. Do you think we get another scene with him and Luthen by the end? We have 6 episodes left.
We gotta get one.
We have to,
we gotta
right?
Get one. Yeah. I think he has to, in some way, shape, or form, make contact with the main rebels that we've been seeing, whether it be Mon Mothma or Luthen. I just think there has to be that interaction.
Well, and Willman was also talking about how he needed to go. He was supposed to leave the next day.
Yeah.
Do you think that was to reconnect with Bix and Cassian, or do you think like?
Yeah, so I think Willman was there because Luthen sent him as like an asset that Saw could use, but also as someone to watch Saw and kind of keep an eye on him. And I think Saw in the moment was also like understanding that that's probably what Luthen wanted, but then Saw's like, I want him. Like, I want to turn him. Like, I want this engineer. And he's like, you don't need Luthen. Luthen's not here. We're right here. We're right here right now. You can fight. And yeah, again, just like different leadership style, but just as effective.
Yeah. It's
So
awesome.
cool.
It's cool. It's very cool. Going back to Gorman.
Yeah.
We get information when Cassian is on the planet and he's dressed as Varian Sky. Loved it. I loved his drip. But we get the information about how Tarkin did what he did.
Yeah.
Which is brutal. I mean, just completely just being like, oh, he tried to land a ship, people didn't want to move, and he just landed on 500 people. It's just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that was one of those moments where I paused the TV. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, is this real? And Tarkin, like, I know that Tarkin, obviously we've seen him in the movies, and he was in Rogue One was the movie where they did the deepfake, right?
Yes. Yep.
But he's a brutal character, I believe, in the comics too, or like in the books, like they talk about all where he came from. But getting that information and then kind of seeing, like we talked about Gorman last week, right? How like we haven't seen Gorman much at all, I don't think, in Star Wars, and now it's literally the central locale for this whole entire arc.
Yeah.
So understanding that, like for me, I really loved, as a planet, I love the production design. I thought it was really cool looking. I love how the spiders are the big thing for them, and like there's a lot of web designs based in like a lot of the things. So I'm curious your thoughts on the planet, just as a Star Wars fan who's seen so many of them, and then also the info we get of like the initial issue that happened on Gorman so long ago and why they're so worried about the Empire in general.
Yeah, it's again just Tony being very meticulous in building every aspect of something out before dropping the hammer. And like you said, there's so much thought that goes into not just the imagery in the town, like there were spiders and like the mosaics on the wall of the bar, you know, like you said, the architecture itself looks kind of like web-like, but also, you know, you have these gestures that they do to each other. They have these hand gestures of saying hello to someone or saying goodbye. They say till then, like just engrossing you in the culture so that you feel for them. And when the ball does drop, you're just going to be that much more hurt because you feel every bit of their culture. You know that it's been there for thousands of years, like you said with Tarkin, and seeing that tragedy in the monument that they put up, and that their whole, you know, their anger that they have right now is because they're building something that's going to cast a shadow on this monument for people that died. It just makes you feel for this culture that, you know, when there is a tragedy that comes, it's going to feel like a true loss. It's just like Ferrix in the first season. You get engrossed in everything that Ferrix is, the culture, the people, the town, you know, kind of where everything is. You're like, the bell tower's over here, Marva's house is over here, this is the main strip, and they bring it all together in the end. And I think it's kind of going to be the same thing with Gorman. Like, we're going to know, oh, that's the main shop over there, that's the city center, that's the hotel, that's Syril's office. Like, you're just going to know the layout and the culture, and it's just so good.
Do you think we're going to get that in the final arc again this season? Or do you think you're getting it in episodes 7 through 9? Because I think we're getting it in 7 through 9.
I think we're getting it next episode. Yeah, I think based on the way this ends, we've kind of lit the match, and now, you know, we're going to see the Empire really come down hard on them, at least to start, and then really take it to the next level.
Yeah. Jumping back to some levity, we have Syril returning home for a bit. Can only see his girl for an hour.
Yeah.
She wants him to turn off the lights, so you love that. But laugh out loud moment for me is when Syril gives his mother the spider toy and she decides to name it Syril.
It's so funny. Yeah. And
so
then she's
great.
like creeping it towards him. She's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, that's a nice thing to say about your son.
Yeah, that's an interesting name to give the spider.
Yeah. The Deidre Syril scene, it obviously is very funny, but I just appreciate the transactional relationship that they have. Like, she's using him to be like an informant on the ground, but she has no like physical attraction to him. Like, they give like this air kiss when they both see each other for the first time, and then, you know, he obviously is there for some action, and she's like, fine, turn off the lights. Like, she is like totally just gonna go through with it just for him, but she is not interested like in the slightest. And it's so transactional, and I mentioned it in my episode, just the juxtaposition of the bad guys and their relationships and what they're about, and the good guys and their relationships and what they're about. So we see Bix and Cassian, we see Vel and Cinta, and then we see Syril and Deidre, where one side of the coin, they're putting their relationship before the cause, but then the bad guys, they're putting the cause before their relationship. Mm-hmm. They're both trying to go up in the ranks in the Empire without each other. They don't really care. And then on the other side, Cassian's like, you either bring me and Bix in, Luthen, or I'm out. Like, you need us both. And I like that relationships were kind of the core of these 3 episodes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Not only that too, but we have Luthen and I forget her name too. The one he works with.
Oh, Clea.
Yeah.
She rocks.
She's great. But their duo, again, not necessarily a romantic entanglement, but something where you're talking about 2 characters and relying on one another. Saw, obviously, the big standout moment of the episode. For me, and I made multiple notes about it, Luthen's losing his shit. And I thought it was such an important scene to show, to finally give us a different side of his character. But again, just to showcase how amazing Stellan Skarsgård is, because he's the best. I'm so happy he's in Star Wars. But he's literally saying, like, it's the same thing that they say in the last episode, where the Empire is sort of over their heads with how much is happening at the moment. And Luthen is like, we are drowning in intel. Like, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep up with the radio frequencies. I can't fake this. I don't know the messaging. I don't know how to do this. And I love that scene. It was such a human moment. And like, it's like mental health in Star Wars. It's like, I can't handle this shit anymore. Like, I'm losing it. Like, there's too much happening. What did you think about that scene and how it leads us into another party in episode 6?
Yeah, I think him and Clea's relationship is, again, same thing I said with Saw, is like, I felt the most connected to it here. In season 1, it was very just based on surviving and watching each other's backs. But here, we see him be vulnerable with her in that way, where in the first season he denied it. He's like, I'm not slipping. I'm not. There's nothing wrong with me. But here, he's like, I am slipping. Like,
and he's blaming her.
Yeah, well, because he doesn't want to take it himself. But
yeah,
like they recognize each other's weaknesses, or at least she does to him, and that's why she's there to check him. And the way the arc ends with them leaving the party together and they have like that light-hearted moment, I was like, that's great. That I felt the most connected to them and their relationship outside of just, we work together. Like, you could tell that they've been doing this for a very long time and they've built like a trust and respect for each other. And it was nice to just see that moment. And you know, I want to see them go down together. It's gonna be sad, but I kind of want to see him go down together.
Oh man, I don't even want to think about what it's gonna be like when these characters go. But that leads us into episode 6.
Yeah.
And episode 6 again plays into what we talked about earlier, the intimacy between Cassian and Bix, which I loved because it's very human, it's very flirtatious. I love how Cassian plays up his character that he had to play, and he's like, yeah, it was very pretty. He's like, I had my hair coiffed and I wore long robes and it was nice. And it's just like a very romantic banter that feels, it's just mature writing, you know. It's like mature writing in the world of Star Wars, which is something that I had always hoped for, because that's the kind of stuff, not that I don't love the DNA of what Star Wars is, but again, it's nice to see something outside of what we see all the time when it comes to romantic relationships in Star Wars.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I like the kind of, I don't know if it was like a ritualistic dance they did, but they kind of did that like palm cutting. It was just very like a tender moment. I really like that. And like you said, yeah, they kind of effortlessly swing between like joking around to also being like very serious at the same time. And they just kind of walk that balance really well. And yeah, I really enjoyed that.
It's like real banter. It like feels like it's like real banter
organic
between people that care about one another. But it also leads to a lot of conflict for Cassian, because he learns of the fact that, and I believe, I apologize that I must have forgotten it in my notes, but I think it's episode 5 where Luthen does go and visit Bix.
Yes.
And Bix tells Cassian about this, and he loses his mind, and he's like, I can't believe you would do that when I wasn't here. He waited until I wasn't going to be here. He's the one that picked me up, and he still didn't say anything about it. Like, so there's, again, those cracks in the foundation between the trust and the relationship of this band of rebels, and Cassian runs to the the store to go and talk to Luthen, and it's a tense scene, man. There's a lot there. I'm curious your thoughts on that scene and kind of where we end up with them going into the second to last arc.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, what Luthen's motivation was to go and see Bix, because he kind of passes it off as like he's worried about her, but again, in the back of his mind, he's probably trying to recruit her, like he's always trying to just add more assets to his thing. But we also at the same time get that moment where he notices that she is taking this drug to kind of numb herself from all of these feelings that she's having, and he's like, it works, but when you stop taking it, the dreams come back worse. So he's kind of been in that same, and maybe he's lying, maybe he has, like again, you don't know with Luthen what's the truth and what's not. But yeah, I really like that Cassian does go to him and says, like, I'm giving you everything. Like, if you want to keep me, you need to not go behind my back with Bix, and I need to bring Bix everywhere. Like, she needs to be protected at all costs. And it very much reminded me of Vel and Cinta, when Vel, first thing when Cinta gets to Gorman, she's like, I only took this mission. I told Luthen I would only take this mission if you were going to be here too. So it's a lot of people around Luthen like telling him the relationship is just as important or more important than the rebellion, which he usually doesn't take very kindly. But I think at this point he kind of doesn't have a choice.
I think that I agree with what you're saying, but I do think that, again, the key to Luthen's character is that he, and Cassian addresses this in his confrontation, he looks at them as machines. Like they're a cog in the machine of the rebellion to try to get us to point A to point B. And I love how Cassian is like, we're not droids. Like we're people. Like there's more to this than just what you're saying again. Right. And then I love how he then has the callback to season 1 where he says, kill me or take me in. And he's like, this is the mission, Cassian. Like, this is what you asked of me, and I brought you in, and I need her at her best, and I need you at your best. So however you want to take it is fine, but this is the way it is, and you're going to have to deal with it. So that added conflict now amongst the shadows of what's going to happen leading up to Rogue One. It's just like, again, it's just like, it's like a pressure cooker. It's just like, oh my God, man, like, where are we going to go with this? And Tony Gilroy does such a good job of building tension within the characters while they're still on their own individual missions. And, we're eventually going to get a death, and we do get a death.
Yeah.
Not with any of those characters, but you brought her up already. Vel and Cinta, they have this very intimate conversation in the cafe. They admit, like, that they wanted to see each other again. They both take the mission for one another, essentially. And this idiot with a blaster, man, they told him, they said, we're the only two that should have blasters. Nobody else should have blasters. And he accidentally kills Cinta. We get the intimate moment, obviously, before then with the two of them. But what did you think about that whole scene and the taking of the guns going to the armory and things like that too?
Yeah. I think it, again, just feeds into that that theme of love and connection, and that Luthen, while he is a necessary evil of the rebellion, he's also lost sight of what they're fighting for to a degree, because he doesn't have that love and connection in his life. And I think having characters around him trying to remind him, I don't think it'll entirely work, but just having characters around him, like, we're bought in, but we also still care for things on this planet. And like, we're still grounded in the fact that, like, if we want to fight to see a sunrise with these people we love, but we also understand the cost that we might not get there. Whereas Luthen is just completely like cut himself off. And I think that's really interesting. The scene where she dies, again, I don't love the trope of the stray bullet kills a character. I was like, all right. Yeah. But yeah. I like the broader like idea of the fact that, these are rebels that are not trained. They have no idea what they're doing. They're in over their head. He thought he was a hero by bringing a gun. He's like, I'll save the day if the Empire comes, and it ends up getting one of his allies killed. And the interesting part is that, like, Vel goes into it, and her and Cinta go into it, and they're the more serious ones, and they're like, don't mess this up, everyone keep your cool. And then Cinta dies, and Vel is the one that loses her cool for obvious reasons, and they have to tear her out. So it's like, you can be prepared for this, and you can be a veteran, but you can still die just as easily, and you could also lose your shit just as easily as anyone that's new.
Yeah, Vel eviscerates that guy.
Yeah, she does.
Completely eviscerates him in a brutal scene where she talks about how he has to live with his failures and the fact that he killed her, which I think again, it's just a great
like
scene.
skin.
Yeah,
like
you have to wear
skin.
this like skin.
Ugh.
It's great. Do you think that Luthen, because we're talking about like the human element and how he's all these relationships are forming around him, do you think there's a chance that Luthen in the end might sacrifice himself for Clea? Not in a romantic way, but I do think, again, the only one we know that ends at the end of this, that moves on, is Cassian. Like, we know that for a fact.
Right.
Do you think there's any other characters of note that are, I mean, Saw obviously too, but we don't really know what, I don't think it's going to be a significant thing at the end with Saw. Yeah. Any of these other characters, like Clea is the one that I'm looking at now, and I'm like, she might be the only one that could like make it out.
Yeah,
in some way, shape, or form.
She's
a wild card.
She's a ghost. Yeah. I think that would be a nice like full circle moment for Luthen, where he forgot what he originally started fighting for, which is, you know, people he cares about or the people around him or just protecting the galaxy in general. And him sacrificing himself for Clea would kind of fulfill that arc, or at least, and it, you know, maybe he even sacrifices her, not even for like something that moves the rebellion forward, but just saves her for her.
That's what I think is going to happen.
I would love that.
I would love that too. Two last things we got, and I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Yeah.
Krennic's back. Yeah. And we get this great scene with a lot of our favorites all in the same gallery. Mm-hmm. And that tense moment, kind of calling back to what we were talking about in episode 4 between Lonnie and I just said Clea. Mm-hmm. Trying to get the bug mm-hmm. out of the piece. Yeah. What a creative scene. What a great scene to have all our characters in one place, to have the tension literally just from trying to take out a bug. The whispering, the tones shifting back and forth. It's such great writing. Again, it's so good. What did you think of that scene in general?
Yeah. I like it because it wasn't just tense from the fact that Clea was trying to get the bug out at the same time, but it was also tense because Mon Mothma and Krennic kind of butt heads, because Krennic's this high-ranking Imperial who obviously has much different values than Mon Mothma, and she's kind of known as that senator to be outspoken. And when they start kind of talking, everyone in the room is kind of like, not these two going at it. You know, Krennic's like, oh yeah, the old argument that, you know, your rebels are my terrorists or something like that, along those lines. And it's just like, you don't just rely on one piece of tension. You rely on a bunch of pieces of tension all at one time. And the shot of like Clea putting the key under and she keeps missing, and it's not like a perfect, like she knows exactly what she's doing, and then she starts turning it and it's not going and she starts bleeding, and you just know she is literally doing this as hard as she can to get this bug out. It just like reaffirms her commitment to this cause. Like, she is going all out for this. I love that.
100%. It's great. And then our final thing we see of this arc is we finally get Bix's revenge on Dr. Gorst after he gets a promotion. And he goes to his new office, and he's got like a little gift that he gets from somebody, and she sneaks from behind. She puts him through the torture, and then Cassian blows up the building. And they're on their way to kind of do their own mission, which I'm assuming nobody else is aware of, probably. You said earlier on in the episode you didn't love the pacing of that. So if you want to expand upon that, and then just in general, though, how you feel about the revenge actually happening.
Yeah, I think it's totally earned. I wanted to see it. I just felt like we had taken so much time meticulously building up this moment for Bix and all the trauma. And then I feel like one scene, she's taking the drugs and she's looking out the window and she's kind of spacey, and Cassian comes up to her. He's like, are you okay? And she points to this light, the blinking light that I guess Luthen is contacting, or he's trying to send them a signal. And then Cassian's like, I have to go on this mission. And she's like, no, I'm coming with you. And then the next scene we see her in, she's kind of all put together. And then she's in the room with the doctor. And I just felt like there wasn't I felt like there should have been a bridge scene, kind of.
Like a build up to it.
For her, yeah, just to kind of like understand like how she goes from that mind state to say, no, I'm done like feeling sorry for myself. I'm going to take back control of my life and I'm going to do this. I just felt like we were kind of building up her losing herself, and then she's kind of re-empowered in the next scene. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like when Cassian first gets back, she's kind of like, oh, I'm so glad you're back. Like she's kind of like
jittery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she takes the drugs, and then the next scene she's super powerful and she takes him out. And I just thought there was a disconnect kind of there, and it was like a lot of
in terms of the editing and
and I just thought it was a lot of there was a lot of implication that you kind of had to take from like, oh, Luthen sent a signal. Oh, so Luthen must have gotten that information from the informant who just got assigned to be Dr. Gorse's like guy, I guess, the two people. And so when Cassian got mad at Luthen and said all that, Luthen said, okay, maybe I'll extend an olive branch. Here's where the doctor is. You guys go take care of him.
Yeah, see, I didn't get it. I didn't even get any of that.
That's kind of what I had to take, because I was like, what? How did that all sequence? But how did you?
I mean, I just took it as again, like I do agree in terms of it felt abrupt, because you felt like seeing how much of a struggle it's been for Bix in this arc, and then she just eventually is like, all right, well, I'm taking action now, and it's like, okay, but like the last time we saw your boyfriend, he is losing his mind on the leader of your crew, and you're, like you said, like you're basically, she's just like a ghost of herself, like she's a shadow of who she actually is, and through her struggles and through her trauma. So I think it would have played better probably as like a mid episode in the next arc. Probably. I think it would have been nice to have more of a build up, because like even all the things you're talking about, I just didn't even think about it, because it was just like, oh, it was like a cool end. She got her revenge.
Right.
Like I didn't, and you're coming off of the triumph of Clea and Luthen finally getting the bug, and you're like, oh, okay, like happy. Our heroes are happy. So I didn't get any, like I didn't even, when I watched it, I wasn't like trying to piece things together. I was like, oh, I guess he's dead now.
Yeah.
There goes her demons. And it's like, yeah, that's not as earned as you want it to feel.
Right.
You know
Because I feel like everything else was so meticulous, but that felt rushed.
Yes.
And like, yeah, so I just had to like do all that headcanon, which I think is probably the route of how they found out that doctor was in that room on that night. That's the only thing that would make sense to me. But again, I shouldn't have to do all that legwork. You know, it should be made more clear. I'm curious if other people are in the same boat.
Yeah. Well, let us know in the comments.
Yeah,
let us know what you guys think. Please. But last thing, just me asking you in general.
Yeah.
Any theories, any ideas on what you think we could see? We're going to jump another year, so there's a lot of time. So if you have nothing, it's fine.
I'm ready for K2. I'm ready to see
Oh
him.
my God, I haven't even thought about it. I mean, and we know he's in it.
We know
they
he's
said
in
that
it.
Tudyk is in it.
Yep. I'm ready for K2.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see him next week, I think.
I think so.
Happen.
I'm very I really don't know. Again, these like year jumps make it very difficult. Like obviously we still have to be on Gorman, but you know, is the Empire like Iron Fist at this point on Gorman, and that rebel group is still kind of bubbling under? Did they get kind of taken away, and maybe there's a new kind of faction that forms? I don't know. But I know.
Curious.
I know things are going to go bad on Gorman.
Yeah. Well, that's been our coverage. That's been our review and our discussion for episodes 4 through 6. We love having you guys tune into these discussions, so thank you for checking them out. Let us know in the comments, what are your guys' thoughts on the episodes? We'd love to hear. You guys can break it down episode by episode in the comments. We'd love to have a conversation with you guys. We really love this show, and Mark and I talked last week about how we've been waiting literally years to discuss the show on the network, and we only got 2 weeks left to do it. So please, let's have a discussion in the comments. Give this video a like if you guys can, and subscribe to us here at the Culture Wave Media Network. But Mark is the biggest Star Wars fan that I personally know, and he has a whole entire YouTube channel dedicated to just Star Wars. So plug your stuff, Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, Star Wars Mark of Balance podcast, YouTube, Spotify, all the places you find any type of streaming content like that. I go a little bit more in depth in the Star Wars canon and lore. We keep it a little more casual here on Culture Wave, but yeah, would love to see you over there.
Yeah, anything as a Star Wars fan. He talks about video games, talks about some of the books, a lot of stuff. So if you guys are huge Star Wars fans, definitely check out his channel. We have reviews up on some of the other Star Wars stuff that we have done on the channel over the years. We have our reviews for Skeleton Crew. We have stuff for The Acolyte. We have stuff for Ahsoka. So check all that stuff out too if you guys want. And we also cover other things other than just Star Wars. We have movie reviews. We have TV we're covering. Mark did the first 2 weeks of The Last of Us with us. He's going to join us back for the finale of this season after Andor wraps up. So take a look at that stuff if you guys want as well. And then you guys can follow all of our stuff on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube with Reels and things like that. You guys can check all of that out below me in the video. It's also in our YouTube description. So check all that stuff out if you guys can. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Mark Alcabino.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is the culture.